Paul has a question about using clips from a presidential debate from years ago on his radio show. Hi, I'm attorney Gordon Firemark, and this is Asked and Answered, where I answer your entertainment law questions to help you take your career in business and entertainment to the next level. So here's Paul's question. I do a live radio call-in talk show on investments. Recently, I wanted to play an audio clip from the 1984 presidential debate, widely available. It's about 20 seconds out of the whole 2-hour show. Is that permissible to play it from YouTube or some other source? Well, Paul, the basic rule is that the clip you're using belongs to someone, and you're supposed to get permission. In all likelihood, that someone is the TV network where the clip was originally carried. Now, as is the case with presidential debates, it's likely that all 3 networks carried the debate, so you could take your pick. My guess is that they'll grant you permission to use the tiny snippet, and that's that. But you might not even need to get that permission. That's because what you're proposing to do could be considered fair use, and thus not a copyright infringement at all. But fair use is a tricky thing because it has to be judged on a case-by-case basis. There's not really any bright-line rule to state what is and is not fair use. So we have to rely on a complex 4-factor test that needs to be analyzed for each alleged infringement. So here's how fair use works. Fair use is a doctrine that evolved under the old U.S. copyright law and then was made a part of the copyright statute in 1976 when that law was updated. The principle is simple. To deal with the inherent conflict between free speech principles found in the First Amendment and restrictions on copying imposed by the copyright law, it was necessary to create a defense for infringement for certain kinds of uses under certain circumstances. To do this, the courts and Congress set up a multi-factor test that looks at 4 different factors. The first of these is the purpose and character of the alleged infringing use. Educational, scholarly, criticism, commentary, and other kinds of artistic or transformative uses will weigh in favor of fair use, while commercial or more verbatim copying will tip the balance in the other direction. The second factor is the amount and substantiality of the portion taken from the original. This is where that idea that taking only a small snippet is okay comes from. But in reality, it's actually possible to take the very heart of a piece without copying very much of it at all. The third factor is the nature of the original work. If it's an artistic work, it's going to be treated very differently than if the original was something very commercial, like a billboard ad or a TV commercial or a jingle. So think about that. Now, the fourth element or factor is the potential impact on the market for the original if the infringement were allowed to continue. Now, obviously, if there's no real market harm, this factor is going to favor fair use. If the market is kind of strong for this kind of thing and the copying looks like it's just a way to avoid paying for rights or whatever, then things are going to come out differently. Now, none of these 4 factors is dispositive of the question. The court will take a look at the overall balance of these factors in making its determination on whether something is a fair use. And I want to emphasize that this is not a one-size-fits-all thing. Each alleged infringement is viewed standing alone by the court in a copyright infringement case. It's not something you just decide for yourself, hey, this is a fair use and so I'm going to go ahead. The trouble with that is by the time most folks get to argue about whether a use is fair, they're already being sued and they're paying lawyers tens of thousands of dollars to help them. If you're doing a project where the time and expense justify it, and if you're sure you need a particular bit of copyright protected material, the best course of action is to ask for permission or a license, even if that means paying something for it. If you're certain that permission will be denied and you're fairly sure that fair use would apply, then it's wise to get a lawyer's opinion letter on the subject. So listen, I hope this helped, Paul. Thanks again for your question. If you have a question you'd like to see featured here, visit firemark.com/questions to submit it. And I'll see you again really soon.